and welcome to Until Saturday, the Athletics College Football Podcast. I'm your host, David Ubben, and I'm hoping to avoid secondhand smoke issues this week at Neyland Stadium. It's a big one.
I'm Chris Vannini, fellow senior writer at The Athletic, and I'm putting Cam Scatabo at quarterback this week.
I'm Damien Harris, former Alabama running back. Me and my Tide are going to be smoking some David Ubben and volunteer pack this weekend. Get ready for it.
It's time to pick the Week 8 games, including Tennessee and Alabama, the third Saturday in October. Who's going to light those victory cigars? There's nothing like the smell of Bryant-Denny or Neyland at the end of those games because they come out. I've got some interesting recon from some coaches that may help inform our decision. But this isn't the only marquee SEC matchup this week. Obviously, we got a big one with Texas and Georgia. Speaking of SIGs, by the way, can Curt Cignetti and Indiana continue their historic start, or does Nebraska finally fully defrost and punch their ticket to a bowl game for the first time since, I can't believe I'm still saying this, 2016. Hard to believe, but true. Later in the podcast, we got upset watch games for you, including LSU Arkansas. The Tide riding high, or the Tigers riding high, but going into Fayetteville. Plus, we roll out the red carpet for the Middies, our midseason awards and prediction show. But first, guys, let's get to it. We teased it earlier. Let's talk what's going down in Austin this week. College game day there. The Longhorns, the Bulldogs. Texas, the last undefeated team in the SEC. They're going to host Georgia. It's the first real kind of welcome to the SEC game for Texas. Their first big time game. And folks, all of our lines today are presented by BetMGM. Georgia, a 3.5-point underdog going to Texas. The over-under in that game, 55.5. We're talking Georgia. It only makes sense, Dame, to start in the kennel. Who's your Dame's dogs for this week?
Well, this week, starting the show off for my Dame's dogs, I want to focus on UGA secondary. And not because they've been playing at a dog level, but because obviously going against Quinn Ewers and this amazing Texas passing offense, they're going to need to be dogs if Georgia wants to have a chance. And I want to go back to the game against Mississippi State for Georgia. And the biggest concern for me as to why they're not playing so well right now is they're getting really confused by like motions, eye candy. I mean, when receivers go in motion and go from one side of the formation to the other, it seems like the communication just starts to break down immensely. And the next thing you know, you've got guys just running down the middle of the field wide open, running down the sideline wide open. And to me, this isn't characteristic of a Kirby Smart secondary or a Kirby Smart defense. I mean, Kirby Smart being the great defensive coach that he is, he helped coach with defensive backs at Alabama when he was with Nick Saban. So, this would be something that I would expect them to excel at. And I mean, they've got the bodies, they've got the talent. I just don't think that communication piece and understanding and digesting what the offense is doing that's not their strong suit right now. That's what's causing them to struggle. And like I said, Quinn Ewers and the Marching Longhorns are coming into town. And what are they going to do? They're going to motion guys. They're going to send receivers across the formation. They're going to send vertical route patterns down the field. And they're going to try to get behind this Georgia defense, this Georgia secondary, and confuse them with a lot of eye candy. So if Georgia wants to win this game, if they want to have any chance to stay in this game, they've got to stop Quinn Ewers in this offense. And the secondary has got to step up. They've got to communicate better. They've got to have better eye discipline. And they've got to be able to not let things get behind them. You've got a great front seven. You've got a great defensive line. You got linebackers that can run sideline to sideline. We saw that in the second half against Alabama. So keep everything in front of you. Let your front seven kind of corral the inside, like the first two levels of the defense. And then just like I said, don't let anything get behind you. Don't give up the big plays. And I think if they do that, I think like player for player, talent for talent, they can match up with these receivers, but it's all gonna come down to their eye control, their communication, and their defense, or not defense, their discipline in the secondary for them to stand a chance in this game.
Chris, somehow you've never been to Austin for a game. Do I have this correct?
That is correct.
That seems hard to believe. You live in You live in Dallas for like a long time.
I live in Dallas, but Sam Kahn is down there, covers Texas a lot for us. Max Olson was with us for a while. Lived in Austin for a bit. So it's my first opportunity. Really looking forward to it. Going to make a long drive down on Saturday. Going to stay up in Waco on the way back.
Go to Round Rock Donuts, Chris. Do it.
Okay. I have been to Austin before. I just haven't been there for a game. And by the way, this is F1 weekend as well in Austin. Like every hotel is like $1,000. It is insane. I'm staying in Waco on the drive back to Dallas after this game because it's going to be a late one. But when I look at this game, I'm in the same spot as Damien because Georgia's secondary is 68th in the country in yards per pass allowed. They were 6th last year, and they're usually in the top 5. So that is showing up in the numbers. And the other part is Quinn Ewers. I was at Red River, Texas, Oklahoma, and Quinn was not great, but he didn't need to be because Oklahoma can't move the ball. He throws an interception on his first throw. He missed some guys later on. He was running into pressure sometimes with the way Oklahoma was using that front. And so can he shake off the rust? Is that oblique injury still bothering him? Because Texas didn't need to do much in the second half. They just basically sat on that lead. That's not going to cut it against Georgia. So how healthy is Quinn Ewers, and can he attack a Georgia secondary that has been more prone to big plays than it has in a very long time?
Chris, you said that it was interesting. Have we seen Quinn be Superman in any game besides Bama last year?
I think the Michigan game this year, he was. He was really, really on point in that
I agree with Chris. Don't make that face, David.
To some degree, but also, what did you have to do to win that game? Did they win that game because of him? I covered that Sugar Bowl, and he was good, but it's tough to see how good he was when I'm serious. I was talking to some people at this week, actually. The Penix performance in that game was the best quarterback performance I think I've literally ever seen, maybe in college ever, a single game. Right. So I'm intrigued to see it. I think he has to be Superman in this game for them to win this. He's going to have to make some plays. We haven't seen him make a ton, and there's going to be a pressure on him because I think they are going to have to score. And part of that is, myself and Sam Kahn, we did Coaching Confidential this week and talked to some coaches. And one of the things that we heard was, there's this idea because Texas is the last undefeated team because everybody else, we've seen flaws. There's this idea of Texas is clearly the best team and can't really be gotten. They can be gotten, and they can be gotten downfield. You can hit some shots on this team. They haven't played teams that have been able to do it consistently enough and hold up.
Nope.
Michigan was probably the best team that they've played. They're not going to do it. Oklahoma, no shot to do it with no receivers. It's going to be an interesting test. They're going to play teams with better weapons than Georgia, but a lot of the coaches mentioned that you can hit some shots downfield on this team, but you got to protect to be able to do it. And that can be a little bit of a challenge. I don't know how much they will try. Dame, we've talked about this all year, Sark's creativity and being able to cook that stuff up. And, maybe you fake some orbit motion and you freeze the linebackers and you say, hey, we're going to flip it out there. And then you flip it out there once in the first half, you fake it in the second half, and then hit something deep on the backside in the second half to package that in. I don't know, but I do think that Georgia has to be aggressive in the same way that they were against Alabama to win this game, and we might have to see Quinn put up 30 to win this game.
Everybody knows the weakness of this Texas defense is the secondary. It's where they've had the most issues. They just, like you said, haven't been tested. We saw Georgia throw a lot of deep shots on Alabama. Eventually, they started hitting because that's Alabama's weakness too. So, yeah, I would expect that. I think Texas is going to have to put up some points in this game. And to your point about the pressure, Texas had a 50% pressure rate against Oklahoma. Michael Hawkins had no shot back there.
That is not a winning formula.
No, part of that's Oklahoma's offensive line's not great, but part of that's Texas doing a really good job up front.
Well, offensively in this game, do you guys think Texas takes a page out of Alabama's book and tries to come out and do things that they haven't necessarily seen before from Texas, or kind of give them some different looks? Or do you guys see them just kind of playing their style of football and being Texas brand of football versus Georgia's brand of football, and we're going to see who's better?
I think nothing dramatic, but I think I'm interested to see what the opening script is from Sark.
Right.
That will be really, really interesting.
Because he's so creative.
Yeah. And this Georgia team is going to be, pretty fired up. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you try to use some aggression against them. I feel like if you're Georgia in this game, you're going to have such an emphasis on we got to get to the quarterback. You got to get to the quarterback. Can you use that against them? Can you hit them with a screen on the tunnel screen on the first play when when your defensive line is keyed up on we're going to make it a long day for Quinn? I don't know. We'll see. I'll be really interested. I think for me, I guess I'm going to go with Texas here. I think, Chris, I rip on Texas fans probably more than I should because the environment is not great a lot of the time. But when it's great, it is. When Texas gets up, it gets up, and they are going to be up for this one. It's going to be a tough environment. I think I'm going to go with the Horns here and lay the 3.5. I like Georgia, but this is just a tough spot for them. And I think I guess they probably have the better quarterback in this game. It's close, but I think we see Quinn make enough plays here to win them this game, and they hold up in the line of scrimmage. Dame, who you like here?
I like Texas, but I'm like you. I'm not so sure, and I'm like, but I think what you said is true. I think the position that Georgia's in, obviously losing to Alabama, and with the way the 12-team playoff system goes, you're trying to get an SEC championship. Really, every week is a playoff game, and I don't know if this is the team that you want to be playing against on the road whenever you're in a spot like this. So
yeah.
I'm going to go with Texas. I personally think that they have the better quarterback overall, maybe not what we saw last week, but I think that if he's healthy, if he had a week to, maybe last week was just getting him back up to speed. And if he gets back up to, what Quinn Ewers can be, I think he is the better quarterback. I think Texas wins.
So, Ubben, how does DKR Stadium at its best compared to Autzen Stadium? You got a lot of hate from Oregon fans for that take.
At its best, I think they're probably similar. I think my biggest issue with Texas is because there are so many Texas fans that don't have deep ties to the university. I mean, Chris, you live in Dallas. You know this. There's no such thing as a casual A&M fan. They're all insane about A&M.
Yes.
There's like almost only casual Texas fans. There's a lot to do in Austin. So like when they're playing Louisiana Monroe or they're playing, whatever, a team they don't care about, it's not a great environment. They don't pack it out all the time. But when it's up, it's up. And I think it can be really, really scary. And that will be the case for Georgia this week.
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas as well. I have felt for a while this is probably the best team in the country. But again, Quinn Ewers has to be better. He has to be feeling better. So that's what it's going to come down to. This Georgia team has more flaws than we've seen in a Georgia team in quite a while.
Guys, it's time to get our SIGs up for friend of the program, Kurt Signetti, who joined this week. If you missed it, go watch our show on Wednesday. Ralph Russo also on that show. The Hoosiers, a 6.5-point favorite in football, we should remind you, against Nebraska, over-under of 50.5 in this game. I'm really excited for this game. I love watching Indiana. I didn't really know what to make of them. I kind of shrugged them off. And then I remember I was in Nebraska watching them play Western Illinois, and they were scoring at will. And I was like, this is interesting. I kind of thought it would be kind of ugly. It's a first year. And then I thought the next week, I was like, they're going to go give UCLA the business. And they did exactly that. They have been dominant. They have not played good teams. Nebraska is the best team that they are going to play. I think ultimately, you look at this Nebraska defense, they've only faced one offense in the top 50 nationally in yards per play, and that's Purdue, who has kind of only recently turned it on and just fired their OC. Indiana's fifth. This is a tough test, and if they win this game, I have a lot of sympathy for places. Auburn jumps out to me. There's a few others where you're just hearing patience. It takes time. And then you look at Indiana, and then you're like, well, does it? In the portal era, does it? He brought over 13 guys from JMU, and they're rolling. Does it take time? And then if they win, I also have to feel nervous for Indiana on trying to keep our guy Sig Nasty. But either way, I like Indiana here. I like them to get the job done. I just think I don't know that they're a Big Ten title contender, but I think they're really good. And I don't think a lot of this is self-inflated. You can point to the schedule, but what do good teams do? They beat the heck out of bad teams. Dame, are you where are you feeling on this game? And what's your dogfight in this one?
I like Indiana in this game. And part of the reason, maybe the biggest reason, is because of my dog of the day and Curtis Rourke. I mean, he has been an incredible quarterback for Indiana this year. And when I look at him, what stands out to me the most is he just always makes the right decision. And I'm not saying that in terms of he doesn't turn the ball over. He's perfect on the field. But when the ball needs to come out quick, it comes out quick. Whenever he needs to look and scan the field and hit the big play, he does that. Whenever he needs to take off and run, he always it's like he's always doing what the moment, what the circumstance calls for. And you can't always find that. And I look at a guy like Dylan Raiola on the other side of the ball, which is such an interesting quarterback matchup to me. But he's a younger guy that's got all the talent, that's got all the intangibles, the big arm, the talent. But he doesn't make every routine, every scheduled play. Sometimes he's looking for the deep ball when he should have just hit the check down. Maybe he could have scrambled for 2 or 3, but he just throws it out of bounds. So to me, Curtis is just that veteran quarterback that knows what play needs to be made at the right time. And he always stays in a rhythm. And I think that that's what helps him be so efficient throughout the game. And obviously that's what gives Indiana such a great chance and has them 5th in the country in total offense this year. But like I said, I am really excited about this quarterback matchup because on the opposite, like I said, Dylan Raiola, he is that young, super exciting gunslinger. So this is going to be a matchup of that veteran, smart, savvy guy that knows how to play the game the right way versus the young quarterback who's super exciting, who has all the talent in the world. It's going to be a great matchup, and I'm looking forward to seeing it.
The internet dropping a. How do you feel about the Patton Apartments nickname from our guy?
Listen, I mean, he looks like him. He plays like him. I mean, I ain't mad at it. Listen, I like the kid, and I like the cosplay too because it seems like sometimes when you see guys who model after somebody else, and you can tell like I think you're doing this on purpose, and they're like, nah, I'm my own guy. Like I don't know, he just happens to be like me. But it seems like Raul is just like.
It's too much. I mean, it's too much.
Whatever.
It's too much for me.
Our Mitch Sherman, by the way, wrote a whole story about that, about the comparisons and talked to the QB coach and stuff like that. So go check that out. That is good. Big Curtis Rourke fan here at Indiana. He was MAC Player of the Year. I watched him at Ohio. Younger brother of Nathan Rourke. They're both Canadians, so it's really working out there.
Hey,
my question with Indiana though, they haven't played a team with a winning record. Their best win is Maryland. They're 114th in Sagarin strength of schedule. That doesn't mean you're not good. It just means that just need to see a bit more. And I think the next 2 weeks will tell us everything about Indiana.
Yes.
You got Nebraska at home. You got Washington at home. You win those 2 games, you're in the Big Ten race because there's only 4 games left at that point. And they don't play Penn State. They don't play Oregon. Their remaining games would be Michigan State, Michigan at home, Ohio State, Purdue. Like, if they win these next 2 games, you're looking at possibly an 8-1 Big Ten record there, and then you're right there in the championship mix. So I'm a believer in Indiana. I think they're a really good team. I'm picking them to win and cover the 6.5 they're laying in this game. Keep an eye out. We may be talking more than 9-win Indiana. Like we may be going even bigger than
that. Maybe it feels like Indiana is the new TCU. Moving on, guys. I'll be at this game on Saturday night, dodging smoke. Alabama, a 3-point favorite, going to Neyland Stadium. Over under in this game, a 56.5. I call this like the angstiest top 10 matchup ever. You got 2 teams that are in the top 10. Alabama fans are grumbling very loudly about their coach. Tennessee's wondering if they were overhyped. They're both teams still in the top 10, still have 1 loss, still in the thick of the playoff race. You lose this game. Not quite an elimination game, but you basically have to be perfect. And when the SEC with half the schedule, it's still going to be tough. Dan, we'll start with the Tennessee angst here. The offense has hit a wall, fallen off a cliff, whatever negative analogy you want to make. The last 3 weeks, that starts with the running game. What jumps out to you for why this running game has not worked? This is your dog of the week, but it's more of a sort of a 3-legged puppy situation.
Yeah, it's more like we're trying to figure out how to bring the dog back out, and that is Dylan Sampson. I mean, he's been unbelievable when this Tennessee offense has been clicking and when the offensive line has been playing well and been blocking for him and moving the guys out of the way up front. I mean, he's got 15 touchdowns. He's averaging 6 yards a carry almost. But the problem with these things is on top of the offense sputtering and having a little bit of injury issues with tackles, things of that nature. When you look at his yards per carry against top 25 opponents, it drops down from 6 to 5. He's only got 200 rushing yards against top 25 opponents. He's only got 3 rushing touchdowns against top 10 opponents. So I think kind of all the things that we've said, like the offense is just sputtering. Like, I don't really know why, but they're just stalling, whether it's Heupel's fault, whether it's Nico's fault. I don't really know, but it's just sputtering as a whole. And then whenever you've got a lot of depth issues at offensive line, that doesn't paint a clear picture for who's going to be blocking for you, how they're going to be working together, how their communication is, what they expect from you as a runner, what you expect from them as blockers. And then, the top 25 competition is clearly slowing them down. So these are major problems. And this is really what makes Tennessee not good, in my opinion. It makes them that overrated team because, in my honest opinion, they're best whenever they're running the football, whenever Dylan Sampson is going. And another thing that, actually you and I had talked about, Ubben, I want you to give a little bit more insight to this, is the conversation about how Nico is counting the defense, meaning how he's counting defenders and which way, he's sending the runs. And if he's having trouble identify, like if a safety drops down, making it an 8-man box instead of a 7-man box, kind of highlight some of that, because that obviously can play a huge problem in the run game as well.
Yeah, so I've kind of thought this a little bit with this Baylor offense the last couple years as defenses have kind of adjusted a little bit and tried to figure it out. You have to kind of try and stay ahead. But it's always a numbers game. If there's 5 or 6 guys in the box, they're going to run. If you try to load the box up to stop, they're going to hit you vertically. They're going to hit you on quick screens outside and block it up on the outside and make you tackle on the edge. But I think what you're seeing defenses do, and we talked a little bit about this in Coaching Confidential. I asked this to a couple coaches, and they both pretty much agreed that they think a lot of teams are doing this to Tennessee and some other offenses that are running this, is you make it look like it's a light box, a 5 and 6 yard or 5 and 6 man box. And then post snap, once they kind of know what they want to do, you bring in guys off the edge, you bring a nickel back down, you bring a safety down subtly so that they don't really guess that that's what you're doing. But you do that, and then you stop that running game. The 3-3 front can help you do that. We saw Oklahoma use that a little bit. We saw Arkansas do that a little bit. And so I'll be interested to see.
Arkansas had not run it all year. They put that in specifically because they knew that's how you stop Tennessee, and it worked.
Yes, very much so. And they looked confounded. And I think the biggest thing for me is that Tennessee doesn't seem to have a lot of answers here. And I don't know if on some level you have to just say, hey, look, it may look like a light box. We have to stretch the field one way or the other. It doesn't look like they're doing that. And I think one of the issues here that is sort of being overlooked is, Chris, what was the big criticism of Joe Milton for basically his entire career at Michigan and at Tennessee?
He could throw it a mile, but you didn't know where it was going to land accuracy-wise.
Exactly. So the thought was, hey, when Nico comes in here, the processing might be a little bit better. His accuracy might be a little bit better. What if I told you that Nico is throwing like 4 percentage points more throws off target, and he ranks actually 77th nationally this year in on-target percentage, whereas Joe Milton was like 37th last year? The idea that Nico could be less accurate than Joe Milton is very concerning. I don't think that's going to be the case forever. I think it's a lot of there's so much hype about Nico and all these things, and people forget that the guy started like 6-7 games right now. I think he can improve. I think he might be thinking a little bit much, and when you're thinking a lot, sometimes it's hard for your mechanics to stay true and do all those things offensively as a quarterback. So Tennessee's kind of in a mess right now. I don't know what to make of them. I'm going to go Alabama in this game because I think they have the better quarterback. And I think in games like these, when you have a guy like Jalen Milroe touching the ball on every single play, that means a lot. But I think it's going to be lower scoring than some people think. Chris, what's your feel for this one?
Well, my feel for this is like almost an eliminator game for the college football playoff. Mm-hmm. If you lose this game, you are very much on danger watch because the loser of this game will have 2 losses. Alabama still has to go to LSU and play Missouri.
2 conference losses, too. So you're the conference race. You can't sneak in, really.
Yep. Tennessee still has to go to Georgia, and they got to go to Vanderbilt, who looks pretty good. And they have Kentucky. So, suddenly you're going to be, in that, butt-pinching mode where you can't drop another game or the unbelievable... the possibility of Alabama not making the playoff is on the table. And that is not something any of us would have predicted coming in. And that's what makes this game really interesting, because suddenly whoever loses this game is right on that edge of it's going to be close. And so there's a lot of stakes of this, a lot on the line. SEC playoff, the victory cigars, the rivalry, Kalen DeBoer's first game, everything. This is going to be an unbelievable scene, I think.
I think so. And if you guys haven't checked out Coaching Confidential, we talked to 7 coaches who have played these 2 teams and got a lot of insight. And the comparison between Kane Womack's defense and sort of maybe guessing a little bit and Nick Saban's defense, trying to let guys play a little bit more free, was very, very interesting. I learned a lot talking to coaches. I always do try to pass that on to our readers as well. Dame, I'm going to guess you like the Tide in this one.
I do, but I think it's going to take a lot more than what we've seen in the past 8.5 quarters. I mean, and the biggest thing for me is I want to see something, and I think that we're going to need to see something other than Jalen Milroe carry this team on his own, or just the Jalen Milroe to Ryan Williams connection. They've got to get Jam Miller involved. They got to get Justice Hayes involved. They got to get some of these other receivers involved. Everybody has got to play better. This cannot be a game that rests on Jalen Milroe having to throw for 300 yards, 150 of those yards going to Ryan Williams, also rushing for 150 yards. Like, no, they're going to have, the coaches are going to have to get more guys involved, and more guys are going to have to step up and accept that role, embrace that role, and be difference makers in this game. And if they do that, I like Alabama to win.
I don't know, Dave. I feel like maybe Milroe might be enough in this one. We'll see. He's pretty special.
Well, I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this would be the best defense that Alabama has played against yet.
Maybe it's close with them in Georgia. Probably
depends what you think of Georgia.
Yeah, it's close.
I'm not sold because I mean they gave up how many points to Mississippi State?
That's a good point.
So I'm not sold on Georgia's defense, and that's why I'm confident to say this is one of the top 2 defenses that they're going to play. I think their front four collectively is better than Georgia's, and I think that could pose a problem. I mean, like I said, against after the Bama and South Carolina game, like Jalen Milroe is starting to look tired. He's starting to look beat up. He's starting to look a little bit worn down. And if Tennessee can capitalize on that, and if other guys don't step up, then I don't know if Milroe is going to be able to get it done on his own.
Yeah, for all the sort of hand-wringing about Tennessee's offense, the defense hadn't had a bad outing yet. We got some big games this weekend, and we got some teams on upset alert too. Notre Dame, an 11.5-point favorite at Georgia Tech, right outside the skyline in Atlanta. The over-under in this game, 49.5. I'm excited for this game because I think we're going to learn a lot about Notre Dame. They're one of these teams that I'm still not quite sure how good they are. That we've seen them look really, really good. We've seen them obviously look very bad against Northern Illinois. That Texas A&M win gets better week by the week. That's currently the team sitting on the top of the SEC standings, if you haven't checked in a while. And if you can win big here, that tells me a little bit about you. And Notre Dame has been pretty dominant. They beat Louisville solidly. They didn't dominate them, but they've been really dominant since that Northern Illinois win. And I think they figured out some stuff with Riley Leonard. To me, this game says, hey, Georgia Tech is competent. Not a great team, but a competent, pretty good team. If you're beating this team by 17, 20 points, I'm tired of the Notre Dame playoff skepticism. Like, this is a good team that I think can get into the playoff. Chris, where are you at on this game?
Well, Notre Dame had some big news this week. Star cornerback Benjamin Morrison is out for the season after hip surgery. He is a potential first-round pick. That is a huge loss. Now, this is a really good Notre Dame secondary, probably arguably the strength of its entire team. But they had another corner who left, I think, early in the season to transfer. So they're down some guys here in the back end. Not that Georgia Tech is throwing the ball a ton, but if you're thinking Notre Dame make the playoff and win a game or two, that's a loss that's really going to hurt that. And they're down a couple of guys. They've lost their starting center and their left tackle and a couple of DNs for the season. They got a bunch of other ongoing injuries. The kicker's hurt. That impacted their last game. So, like, Notre Dame is getting really banged up here. And that kind of makes me worry long-term for them. When it comes to Georgia Tech and what they like to do, as they like to say, run the ball, Notre Dame's run defense is okay. They're like in the 30s in yards per carry allowed. 11.5 is a lot on the road. I'm going to go Georgia Tech here.
Dame, what do you like?
I definitely like Georgia Tech to cover for certain. I think Notre Dame wins the game. I think they're the better team. But I go back to what you said. This is going to be an eye-opener one way or another for Notre Dame. Are they good or are they bad? Because this Georgia Tech team, regardless of how actually good they are, they're a team that plays with good fundamentals. They have a good foundation. I mean, they're well coached. I've talked about Brent Key, before on this show, and he coaches his team to be tough, to be nasty, to be gritty, to play fundamentally sound football, and obviously play within themselves. So to beat them, you're going to have to stop the run. You're going to have to be able to run the ball, and you're going to have to play a clean football game from all aspects. Like, Riley Leonard is going to have a good game. He's not going to be able to go out there, slop it up, cough up a couple turnovers, and then still be in, position and control of this game. So I think you hit the nail on the head. If they win this game convincingly, if they win by, 2-3 scores, I think we have to really look at this Notre Dame team. And I say me, because I've been one of the biggest skeptics when it comes to Notre Dame and their playoff hopes. But if they win this game convincingly, then I think you do have to put some respect on their name, and they rightfully deserve a chance to be playing for a national championship.
No slopping them up here. No slopping them up.
Don't slop them up. Don't do it. Don't slop them up.
Notre Dame rolls. I like Notre Dame big here. Elsewhere in the ACC, Miami on the road at Louisville. We got it. They are a 4.5 point favorite.
Fine. I didn't correct you earlier, but
they're 4.5. When I think about it, I can do it, but I'm naturally it's gonna be Louisville every single time. Miami, a 4.5 point favorite at Louisville. Over under in this game of 61.5. Listen, I want to believe Miami. I want to believe. I want to. You're so fun. Having the U be good and be back in college football is tremendous.
Turnover chain is back.
Let's get the turnover chain. Let's get Michael Irvin back on the sidelines in all fours. But if you're going to screw it up, Miami, this is the kind of game where you screw it up. We've seen you try. You tried really hard against Virginia Tech to lose that game. You couldn't do it. Maybe bailed out slightly by the refs. So I'm going to trust Miami in this game. I'm going to say Miami gets it done. I like Miami to win this game on the road at Louisville and do it convincingly, put some points on the board. I have a lot of questions about the Louisville defense, especially with the way they played against Notre Dame. I think Cam Ward can carve them up here. So, Dame, what do you got?
I like Miami too. And they've had a bunch of close calls and a bunch of games where it looked like they were trying to lose them, but somehow they found a way to scrap them all out. And that becomes a habit, winning close games, finding a way to close it out. And I agree. This could definitely be a letdown game for them. This could definitely be that moment in the season where we're like, oh, Miami, you were so close. Like, it was supposed to be you. We were all rooting for you. Like, this can definitely be one of those type of games. And I expect it to be one of those type of games. But the fact that Miami has just found a way, whether it's Virginia Tech, whether it was Cal, Cam Ward finds a way to will this team. They rally around him. Mario Cristobal has got a good program down there. So I think the habit that they've gotten in somehow of finding ways to win games, close games that they were supposed to win by a lot more, I think that happens again this weekend.
Yeah, I think Louisville has not been what we thought coming in. Mm-hmm. I think there was a pick by, this could be a top 3 ACC team. Defense hasn't really been that. Tyler Shuck has been very up and down the last 3 weeks. He's thrown an interception 3 straight games. They have that ugly game against Notre Dame with all the turnovers. They lose to SMU at home. They need to come back and beat Virginia late. I'm going to go Miami covering the 4.5 they're laying as well.
Yeah. Elsewhere, we go to the SEC. My neck of the woods. LSU, a 3-point favorite going to Arkansas. The over-under in this game, 55.5. Let's start with you, Dame. What do you like here?
I like Brian Kelly to cough this game up. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that they just, he's the world's greatest coach now just because they beat Ole Miss at night in Death Valley. I don't know. It's the fact that their trajectory is going like this and a typical Brian Kelly fashion to just send them crashing down. I don't know. I feel like somehow, some way, whether it be coaching, whether it be player management, whether it be time management, communication, Brian Kelly is due for a game like this. Like we were just talking about with Louisville and Miami. I see that happening this weekend. They're going to be on the road. Arkansas and Taylor Green, I really don't think they're that bad. They've coughed up some games that they possibly could have won. They haven't looked good at times, but I still think that this is one of those competent teams. I like Arkansas. Give me the underdog. Give me the upset. But I will go back to like how we were talking about Notre Dame versus Georgia Tech. Although I was a little bit more convinced in LSU after they beat Ole Miss, like I said a couple weeks ago, I've thrown in the towel on Ole Miss. I gave up on them after what I saw against Kentucky. If LSU wins this game sure-handedly and convincingly, then I start to think about, okay, Garrett Nussmeier, Brian Kelly, LSU, these guys are for real.
The boot game gets weird, man.
It does get weird
sometimes.
It does.
And shout out to the Miracle at Markham a bajillion years ago. Listen, LSU is not one of the 10 best teams in the country. They're a good team. They're not one of the 10 best
I don't think so either.
This is such a weird spot because you're coming off of that huge game against Ole Miss last week where, they were playing from behind. They were not the better team in that game. I kind of, as sad as Jackson Dart looked after the game with his Anakin Skywalker flow, he was whispering into the mic like, I just don't know how he lost that game. Me either, dude. I don't know how he lost the game either. And so this is a tough spot. Now you're going on the road to an Arkansas team. Taylor Green getting back healthy. It sounds like he's going to be good to go. They've had 2 weeks to prep for you. They had, enough time to celebrate their win over Tennessee. Haven't played since then. It's going to be a tough atmosphere. The fans do kind of care about this game. Truthfully, the only team that Arkansas really gets everybody in the state just wants to get frothy at the mouth at is Texas. But LSU, maybe a little bit of Bama, but LSU is sort of interesting. And when Arkansas has good teams in this game, they push really good LSU teams. And this is a good LSU team. It's not a great LSU team. So I like Arkansas to win this game outright. At home, definitely cover. I mean, I think this looks like a 27-20 type of game. Arkansas is a good team. They're a few plays away from being undefeated. This is a really, really good team. Chris, what do you got?
I'll tell you, and I'll tell Jackson Dart how they lost the game. It's because the LSU defense is quietly becoming pretty good. They held Ole Miss to 5.5 yards per play. Ole Miss had been over 8, I think, at that point. This defense is really getting better, and Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator, his first season, even losing Harold Perkins, something I said on the Monday show, it might have kind of been a good thing in terms of a fit. You didn't know where he fit on the defense, and now they're figuring things out. Garrett Nussmeier is just chucking it a million times against Ole Miss and eventually got them to go. I like the talent LSU has on offense. We know that. But I really believe in this LSU defense improving. They're not amazing, but they're improving. And if you get a couple of bad Taylor Green turnovers, I'm going to LSU to cover.
I think the issue with me in this game, they don't have a running game to speak of. That's why they have to throw it so many times. And Garrett Nussmeier, as heroic as he was in the fourth quarter and those fourth downs and in overtime, buddy, he threw some weird picks in that game.
Yeah,
some weird picks. And that's at home. So I think Travis Williams and Arkansas's defense will have something for him. Guys.
I agree.
I got to go grab my tux real quick. It's time for the Middies. Let's do it. The midseason, first half of the season awards. Let's start with they're playing there now? Award for the best transfer portal player relative to their team. This is not a Heisman. This is just who's had the biggest impact. Our first nominee, Cam Ward, 2-time transfer from Incarnate Word to Washington State, now to Miami. He's got the Hurricanes in the thick of the national title race, in the pole position for the ACC title race. Great year from Cam. Second, we have the Turnt Man himself, tweeting out his agent's phone number, Diego Pavia, fighting with Breaking Tea on Twitter. Diego Pavia from Vanderbilt. Getting the job done at Vandy. Vandy's got a little juice now. Third, we have our guy, Curtis Rourke. We hyped him up from Indiana. There's a lot of reasons why Indiana is thriving under our guy, Sig Nasty. Rourke's probably the biggest. And finally, we have Dylan Gabriel, guy that we've seen, another 2-time transfer from UCF to Oklahoma, now to Oregon. He's got the Ducks flying high this year, but our winner is, guys, get turned. It's Diego Pavia.
Gotta be.
It has to be. The guy has revolutionized the image of Vandy. People are watching Vandy because of Diego Pavia on the field. Schematically, we can talk about that another time, but Diego Pavia has made Vandy fun.
This team was 2-10 last year. They are about to be 5-2, beating Ball State this weekend, presumably, and then they might host College Game Day with Texas coming to town. That is absolutely on the table right now. It's got to be Diego Pavia.
Yeah, I was going to say, forget people turning their TVs on to watch Diego Pavia. Teams like Alabama, Texas, Georgia that have to play Vandy at the end of the year, they're circling Vandy on their schedule. So that's all because of Diego Pavia. I mean, he is a foundational piece. And like I said before, I really think Vandy is going to take a step, and that's going to be because of the mark that Diego Pavia has left at Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm. Secondly, we have our analytics get him out of here award for the best soundbite of the season. First, we have Kenny Dillingham, Arizona State coach, deep into the night on Friday night in the middle of a crowd storm, just feeling the love, feeling the vibes, and noting that, hey, I used to be one of you guys, as players were jumping and slapping him on the shoulder. Very cool scene. One of the things that makes college football special. Second, we have Pat Narduzzi, Pitt coach, noting that after beating West Virginia in the backyard brawl, that they also beat the officials too in the same game. The old, how many officials are there? 5 or 6 now? What, 17 on 11? Something like that.
He got fined for that. He got fined for that one too.
He can probably afford it.
Yeah.
Third, our guy Diego Pavia, noting that Vandy is effing turnt, as the kids are saying these days. Legend. And fourth, you might have forgot this one, would be Syracuse coach Fran Brown. Was it threatening? Offering? I don't know how we want to call it.
Offering.
Sure. Offering to send Ryan Day a bottle of champagne in exchange for Kyle McCord, who has arrived at Syracuse and helped another first-year coach really revitalize the program. The Orange have been pretty fun to watch this year. Our winner, though, in this pod, we love college football. So the winner is Kenny Dillingham, the guy who helped us remember why the sport is so great. I love a good shot, but listen, Kenny Dillingham, that was an awesome scene. That was one of the best things I've seen all season.
I loved it because he didn't play college football like most coaches did. He didn't. He literally meant, I used to be one of the fans here at the stadium. You know, that's why it was really cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. Just seeing him embrace that was super cool.
Yeah, Kenny's awesome. It's cool to see coaches at their alma mater. It's a high risk proposition. I don't always recommend it, but when it's good, it's great. And we have our This Isn't Nick Saban's Alabama award for the most repetitive media narrative. We have first, the Big Ten and ACC teams having to travel coast to coast for conference games. We might have talked about that a lot on this show. I think we kind of sort of debunked it last week. We're going to call the results still inconclusive. The college football playoff has expanded and more teams are alive. Ryan Williams, hang on, Chris. How old is he? I forgot. Can you help me out?
I think 7. I saw somewhere he's 17 years old.
I'll Google
it. Who told you
minutes.
that? Who told you that? I haven't heard that from anybody.
Give me like 10 minutes. And Ohio State spent $20 million on its roster. We saw which coach was it that was he's talking in his press conference this week.
Was it Jed Fish talking about Oregon?
Somebody asked him about the Oregon-Ohio State games. They look like two $20 million rosters going out there. Very entertaining. But there can be only one. And the winner is college football's favorite minor, Ryan Williams, 17-year-old. Did you know, actually,
one way to say it.
I learned this week. Did you know that he cannot be bet on for the Heisman? He can't be put in Heisman futures because he's not an adult. That's crazy.
Interesting.
Wait, so you mean he's only 17 years old?
That's what I'm told.
Is that what you're telling me?
That's what I'm told.
The kid is only 17. Okay.
But that's very, very interesting to me that he can't be put in Heisman future bets. So basically, if he ends up winning the Heisman, everybody that's putting Heisman bets down would be totally wasted to this point, but you can't put a future on him.
So this award goes up there with Colt McCoy and Chipley being roommates and some of those.
Colt McCoy and there was
God.
Yeah, that was great.
We've had
a handful of those every year. There's always a few. And finally, guys,
he'll always be 17 years, even when he's a senior or a junior and he's going to the NFL. Ryan Williams, he's 17 years old with the number 2 pick here in the draft.
We're gonna call this one the Mulligan Award for the take that we wish we could have had back. I'll just let us all introduce our own. Chris, you can go first.
I said before the season that Michigan was going to beat Texas and make the college football playoff. They did not. They will not. I was wrong.
I lived in the ACC, and I'm still scared, just for the record. But I had Miami being fraudulent, but worse, Florida State headed to the playoff. I might not have been alone in that one, but listen, mathematically, I think Florida State is still technically alive in the playoff if we really want to get down to brass tacks about it. I think mathematically they might still be in the mix, but I don't know if they're going to get there.
They're probably not going to get to a bowl game.
Probably not, but hey, there's a world in which everybody goes 6-6. Dame, what's yours?
Ole Miss being playoff powerhouses, Jackson Dart being a Heisman front runner. I really believed in Lane Kiffin, the Joey Freshwater Express, but it is slowly sinking. So
they're not out of it yet.
They're not.
Listen, but hold on though, because you guys know we do this show together. You guys know how high I was on Ole Miss. Like, it's one thing to be like, okay, yeah, they can get in the playoffs, but I was like up here with Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I thought that they were those guys. So
you'll always have the locks of the week, though, Dame. You rode them for a couple
locks
weeks.
of the weeks. Jackson Dart, he's a Heisman favorite going into the season. Like, the whole world needs to be on the lookout for Ole Miss. Like, yeah, they might still be in the playoffs, but like nobody's looking at Ole Miss as the team to beat right now.
Yeah, I still can't believe they lost that game in Death Valley. That was
LSU defense,
perfect timing.
And it's time to make some predictions to close out the middies and close out our mid-season picks, preview, whatever we want to call this episode. Let's start with the Heisman Trophy. They are going to hand it out in December. Damien, who's your pick for the Heisman?
What position did I play when I played?
I think you were running back. That's what I'm told. I googled
and who is as of right now not the best running back, the best football player in college football? Mr. Ashton Genty.
The man on the blue turf.
Mr. Ashton Genty. And what position does he happen to play? He also plays running back. Give the man the Heisman. Get the running backs back in the commercials. It's time. Ashton Genty, you're my Heisman.
I also picked Ashton Genty, but my only concern here is if you play quarterback, or even if you're Travis Hunter, who did get hurt last week, Genty takes on a lot more contact than a lot of those guys. I'm nervous that somebody rolls up on an ankle or he gets hit in the shoulder the wrong way. He does a nice job of not getting hit square a ton, but that's the only thing that makes me nervous about our guy Ashton Genty. I also picked him to win the Heisman. Chris, you did not. Who did you pick?
Well, I would say, by the way, Genty is on pace to break Barry Sanders' full rushing record.
Crazy.
In a 14th game. Now, Barry only did it in 12. A lot of season left to go. The second half of the schedule is tougher. But this is a historic pace that Ashton Genty is on. But because you both picked him, I'm going to pick somebody else just for the sake of picking somebody else. I'm going to pick Dillon Gabriel, the quarterback of Oregon. If they win the Big Ten, if they're the number one team, he's going to be in the mix, and he'll be the reason why. So I'm going to go with the quarterback of what might the most prolific quarterback of what might be the top-ranked team, Dillon Gabriel. Pretty simple formula there.
Chris, whatever happened to that Barry Sanders guy after he left Oklahoma State? Did you ever hear from him? What happened to him?
I got a Barry Sanders Lions jersey over there in my closet.
And a sick haircut. Don't forget
Detroit's finest. Let's look at our conference champions here. Chris, who'd you take in the SEC?
Gonna go Texas. Like I said earlier, think they're the best team, and they don't have a loss yet. Everybody else has a loss, so that puts them in a good spot. I'm gonna go with Texas.
Dame, what do you got?
Texas. Give me the horns.
I think Georgia can still get right. I think Georgia fixes some stuff down the stretch. I think Georgia's still the best overall team. The more we watch these teams, if you look at the totality of the season, that first half against Bama looks more and more kind of like a weird anomaly that maybe Alabama had a lot of stuff that Georgia was not ready for.
Yep.
So we will see. The Big Ten, Chris, who do you like?
Oregon. I just as I just said, Oregon. If I have Dillon Gabriel winning the Heisman, it's probably because he's winning the Big Ten. I'm gonna go with the Ducks. If you were to put Oregon and Ohio State on a neutral field in the Big Ten championship, it's a toss-up game. Like you could really put that either way. But I thought Oregon came out with a really great game plan in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that coaching staff. I trust that talent. I'm gonna go with the Ducks.
Damien, who you like?
I like Ohio State. I think Ohio State's the better team. I think they let one slip away. I think the bad clock management at the end of the fourth quarter, I think Will Howard's costly mistake. I think Ryan Day's ick for the big game caught up to him, but I don't see that happening again. I like Ohio State if they see each other another time.
I'm with you. I think Ohio State wins a game in Indy. I think they flex on Penn State in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. The rest of their schedule doesn't look fantastic, and I think they got something for Oregon the next time that they see them. In the Big 12, the most wide open league, but somehow I think we may all be thinking some similar things. Chris, what did you like in this one?
We were thinking similar. Again, I'm going to do something different so we have some.
He's zagging
because I think it's one of these two teams. Iowa State, I'm going to go with right now. They've been very quiet. Like people are not paying attention to them since that Iowa game because they haven't played that many great teams. This defense is really, really good, and they don't play the rest of the schedule. They don't play BYU, who is the other team at the top of the conference. They play Kansas State the last weekend of the regular season. That game could be for a spot in the Big 12 championship game.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go with Cyclones.
Shout out to John Heacock. Even when Iowa State is not great, the defense gives people headaches constantly. Dame, who do you like?
I like BYU. I think that since they played Kansas State and kicked their ass, they just haven't looked back. And they've looked great offensively, defensively, special teams. I mean, this is one of those teams that, yes, they've got great foundation and they've got great. I'm trying to think of another word so my producer Cam doesn't yell at me about being repetitive.
Wherewithal.
Yeah, they've got good foundation, they've got good structure, and they have the good principles, values of their organization. But like they play to it and they exceed it at the same time. So hopefully, Cam, I give you some fresh words there so that you're not on my ass later. But I like BYU.
I think for me, BYU coach Kalani Sitake near the top of the list of coaches you would not want to see in a dark alley, and the same can be said of his team. Toughest team in the Big 12, nastiest team in the Big 12. BYU, they've always given teams problems when they play out in Provo, and I think they're going to do that in the Big 12, take care of business down the back half. In the ACC, I'm in on Clemson, guys. I'm in on Clemson. I still don't quite trust Miami all the way. And Clemson, I don't know what happened in the Georgia game. I don't even know if I can really explain it. But all I know is that offense looks completely different in the week since, and it looks way, way, way better than it has the last couple of years. It seems like they've, in year 2, taken some of their restrictor plates off of Garrett Riley, and that offense looks really, really dynamic. Cade Klubnik is like hovering around the Heisman discussion, even though nobody wants to acknowledge it. They got Phil Maffa heated up. I think Clemson takes us to the house the rest of the way. Dame, who you like in the ACC?
Give me Miami. Give me Cam Ward until somebody can beat them. Like I said earlier, I mean, they have a habit of they can win the big game, the easy games whenever they just blow teams out, but they can win the tough games too. And I could see this Miami-Clemson matchup being a dogfight to the very end, but they just find a way to win it like they have the past couple other games. So give me the U.
Yep, I'm going to go Miami as well. I believe in Clemson and what they're doing, but they've beaten up on some really bad teams basically since Georgia. So too bad they don't play in the regular season, but going Miami.
Chris, what do you like in the G5?
So again, to be a little bit different here, the team that nobody's really talking about in all of this is Tulane. And it's because they already have 2 losses. They lost to Oklahoma and they lost to Kansas State in games that were competitive. But Tulane has really rounded into form these last couple of weeks under John Summerall, and I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to them. They do play Navy and Memphis late in the season. The American has like 5 teams that are in the mix. You've got really Tulane, Memphis, Army, Navy, and even North Texas is 5-1. And they all pretty much have to play each other still. So it's going to be a very fun race in the American down the stretch. They're probably going to rack up some losses. And again, Tulane already has 2, so they have to win out, I think, to get the playoff spot. But I'm going to go with Tulane, a team I think a lot of people need to keep an eye on.
Chris, Tulane, I think, is probably the 2nd or 3rd best overall G5 team, but the 2 losses are still hanging around their neck.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a shot Tulane can get in if there's compelling 1-loss teams ahead of them?
Yes, I do, especially if it's like a Liberty situation. And that's the thing. A lot of these teams already have 1 loss. Now, a team that you guys are probably going to pick have 1. If that team wins out, they're probably in. But I think picking Tulane is also banking on some of these other teams picking up some losses.
I look at the schedule, and I like what I see for Boise, and I like what I see for our guy, Ashton Genty. I think he carries Boise to the playoff and makes a little trip to New York City to collect some hardware in December. Dame, are you with me?
I listen. I don't want to overbear this show with too much Ashton Genty talk. I mean, I will close.
We can. The dude's awesome.
I will close this damn show out talking about this guy. But give me Boise State. Run into Ashton Genty. Run into the playoffs. Run his way to the Heisman Trophy. I love it.
Boise's got they've got UNLV on that Friday night game coming up. They may have to play them a second time if they play in the conference championship game. And they closed the regular season on, I think, Black Friday with Oregon State. So there is some sneaky, tougher games on that Boise schedule. And the 1 loss coming to Oregon on the last play really benefits them. If Boise wins out, they're getting the spot, no matter what.
Totally agree. Finally, let's point to some teams that we like that are sleepers that might enter into either conference championship races or playoff conversations that nobody's really talking about right now. Dame, kick us off. Who are you keeping an eye on?
So maybe I didn't understand the parameters. My sleeper,
Who do you like to make a run? My
sleeper pick was just on. Well, I think they can make a good run in the second half of the season, but it's based on what I saw in the first half of the season, and that would be Illinois and this Brent Bielema team. They're tough. They play excellent defense. They take the ball away. They're good in the trenches. They're playing well on offense. I mean, coming into this season, I had no, obviously, expectations of Illinois, and they have surpassed them tremendously. Like, I think they're very well coached. They've got the players that fit the system, that fit the scheme, that fit the DNA of what they're trying to build there. And they've played tough all year, even the games that they've lost. I mean, they've still had things that they could come away from. So I think the success that they had in the first half of the season can definitely be mirrored in the second half. So I'm going Illinois.
Big game with Michigan.
Who's your surprise? Yeah,
Illinois, huge game, and then Oregon next week. I'm going to SMU. I suggested for the Middies that we also do an award on the take that we had that was the best take, and my take was that SMU is going to finish in the top 5 of the ACC. They're doing that right now. They're 2-0 conference. They're 5-1 overall, and they don't play Miami or Clemson in the regular season. So this is a team, like, keep an eye. SMU could sneak its way into that ACC championship game if things break the right way. So they got Pitt, I think, here in a couple of weeks. SMU is rounding into form.
Yeah. Speaking of teams that might sneak their way into the ACC championship, don't sleep on Fran Brown's team over at Syracuse. They're sitting here at 5-1. They go to Pitt next Thursday night, coming off of a bye. Important to note. And then the rest of their schedule: home against Virginia Tech, at BC, at Cal, UConn, and they close at home with Miami. They might be sitting there at the end of the season with a chance to play their way into the ACC championship game against Miami. That would be pretty unbelievable. And we gave Kyle McCord a shout out earlier this year. He has yet to have a game where he's thrown for under 330 yards.
Syracuse to Cal, by the way, I don't know if you've heard, but going coast to coast has made some teams kind of struggle a little bit. That's the benefit for SMU. They're in the middle, so they don't have to go cross country every time. Yeah. They're making the same trip every time.
I'm very intrigued. The Kyle McCord what he's doing at Syracuse, it poses to me a lot of questions about what was happening at Ohio State with the receiving core that they were throwing to last year. I have some questions with how we're using our guy, Maserati Marv. Guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Until Saturday. Please consider subscribing to the podcast if you aren't already. We're on Apple, Spotify, Overcast, wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. We publish 3 podcasts a week: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And subscribing to the podcast not only helps us, but it helps you too. And you'll have the podcast automatically downloaded to your device, direct to you. Leave us a review. Any support from you guys listening is greatly, greatly appreciated. And check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Until Saturday. And of course, call the Until Saturday phone line and leave us a voicemail for our Monday reaction show. Whatever you got to say, rants, questions, corrections, celebrations, whatever you got. We love to hear from you guys. 316-462-9852. Check out the Until Saturday newsletter as well. Jana Bardal, great job with that, highlighting the kinds of things that we have on theathletic.com and all of our college football team. And best of all, it's free. You can find the links to the newsletter, our YouTube channel, everything in the show's description. For Damien Harris, Chris Vannini, I'm David Ubben. We'll talk to you again on Monday. And make sure this weekend to bring back the turnover chain. See you guys Monday.